The Royal Ontario Museum has 6 million artifacts, but at any given time, only 5% are ever on display. For the first time in the near 100-year history of the ROM, curators have opened their vaults and gave the Toronto Sun a behind-the-scenes look at some of their treasures and artifacts. There are even objects from the Canadiana and Ancient Armory collection stored in the planetarium. In addition to their storage at 100 Queen's Park in Toronto, many of their larger treasures and artifacts are housed in a secret warehouse in the GTA.
The ROM is an incredibly diverse museum, and there are very few museums in the world, really, that have retained this level of diversity. We study culture, things made by humans, but we also study the natural world. At one level, the role of the museum is to exhibit objects to the public, for them to learn, for them to enjoy, for them to have this amazing aesthetic experience with objects, but also perhaps a more educational experience with objects. You know, there are many different things that we do. But at the core of it all, and in a way behind the scenes here, is the work we do in classifying objects, in preserving objects.
Stuff which isn't on display, there are various reasons why they aren't. One is because they're not necessarily the most beautiful and interesting of objects. We have quite a large archaeological collection of things that were excavated by ROM excavations. And so in this case, we are custodians of these things. And we might use them in displays or special exhibitions, but mostly they're used for people to study, so we can put the materials we do put on display in context.
This is the lower jawbone of a close relative of Tyrannosaurus called Albertosaurus. It's one of the largest collections of dinosaurs and other vertebrate fossils in North America. And our display is one of the biggest in the world. We have giant ground sloths here. We have all sorts of mammals, lizards, birds. It's sort of our warehouse of fossils, and it's sort of organized like a library. The smaller stuff is kept in these drawers. You have everything from turtles to jawbones. Well, this is the block of dinosaur eggs that we're so excited about here. It's about 195 million years old, and you can see the eggs arranged in tightly packed rows here. We've basically learned how this dinosaur grows up from the time that it's in an egg all the way to an adult. We also have juveniles and teenagers and adults. And we're able to put that into an overall context of how this particular dinosaur grows up. As far as our research is taking us beyond this, we're starting to find many, many more nests of eggs in this particular site.
This used to be at the Museum of the History of Medicine, and when that closed, a lot of their collections came back to us, or came over to us. And so these are now study collections more than anything else. There's not really room for them in the gallery, but people can study them. Some of them are used in the teaching collections. This is a little baby who died in Roman times, and very young child.
So how many years would this be then?
This is only 2,000. Maybe a little less than 2,000. Coffins cost about as much as a car costs. And you can have a Kia or you can have a Rolls Royce. And this is a Kia. This is the low end of coffins. It will do just fine. I can tell it's a woman because there's a yellow face. And there's actually a little picture of her around the side here of the lady who was buried in it. That's the soul of the dead lady. It's called a Ba. And you can see it's got wings. It's a little winged spirit. And her Ba is spreading out her wings and protecting the lady's head. This is in the cupboard because it's very fragile. And this would take vast sums of money to have a conservator get it into a shape that it could go in a gallery and stand up. And, you know, it would be a year of somebody's life to get it into gallery shape.
Well, this is our silver vault. So we have a good representative collection of a lot of the objects, silver and so forth, and we can show, we have a lot of cutlery, have a lot of centerpieces, there's some dinner plates and so forth. Well, we have a lot of donors, and you know, one of the first things many of them say is, well, will it be on display? And then it's, you know, if it can't be on display right away, they start thinking maybe they don't want to give it. But these things don't come into storage and die. We use them all the time. They're being loaned to other museums, including ones in Europe. And the thing is, if people decide, oh, we don't give it, we then don't have the chance to loan it to be seen in other places as well, or to be used, you know. But I think once people realize that we don't take these things in and bury them in some dark hole and seal it up and they never see it.
Bats, there's over 1,100 different species of bats, and that represents over 20% of the species diversity found in mammals. So to study evolutionary relationships, bats are a good group because there's a lot of different species. This is our horned antler room. This room has the specimens that are quite large, the large species of mammals. Well, some of the specimens are in plastic, and we just don't have the facilities to house them properly. So we have them wrapped in plastic so that pests don't get to them and destroy them. Here we have some red fox pelts. The museum is not only a public museum, but we're also a research institution. So a lot of our work is looking at evolutionary relationships of different organisms, but we also study the biodiversity, so how many species are found, not only in the whole world, but in different parts of the world in different countries.
Inside we have the collections, and the collections are all organized by geographic area. So the African material is in one section, and the South American material, or Latin American material, another. It gets rotated when we have the resources to, but for the most part, I would say a good 90% is in storage. So this has been in storage since 1930, and this is the first time the public is going to be seeing it. So I'm really grateful for your coming here because it's inspired some research. I think its value is mostly historical because it leads us into a story of these people and a pretty important fight for the existence of their culture.
Well, meteorites are fascinating because they date from the beginning of our solar system. This is where we all came from. Generally, they're about 4.56 billion years old, give or take. A lot happened in the first few tens of millions of years of the solar system's history. But in general, you can be assured that most meteorites are in that age bracket, 4.5 billion years ago. So they're right from the beginning of everything that we know of, at least in our solar system. Yeah, the collection is growing constantly, but right now we're at about 2,500 individual fragments. That represents about just over 250 species, I guess you could call them individual meteorites.
A lot of what goes on behind the scenes here is research-based, and that's why we need so many objects, because we have to do the research on a lot of material, not on individual examples, but on as many examples as we can find.